from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in good spirits wherever you are in the world. And it is with great pleasure that I continue on with the discussion of the films that are contained within this great curated series of films under the title of Pioneers of African American Cinema. And today, let us continue with a discussion of the filmmaker Richard E. Norman. Now, as some of you may recall, we did discuss a little bit about the filmmaker Richard Norman in a past video that was about the film Regeneration. And today, let's talk about a film from 1926. It's a silent film, and oh gosh, this is a really exciting one. This is called The Flying Ace. Now, as some of you may recall, in our past discussion of the filmmaker Richard Norman, I had mentioned the fact that most of his works, unfortunately, as of now, are not surviving. And what we have surviving today for us to be able to watch and enjoy, what we have surviving today is unfortunately very small in the context of Richard E. Norman's entire film output. And on the one hand, that is a shame because, of course, we understand that he was a great artist and he really made a lot of great works. And as I say, as far as the films themselves, relatively few of those survive for us to watch today. There is still a historical record about his works and his life and his career and his filmography. And so even though most of his works might not be surviving as of now, we still are able to learn about them and to know what they were about and to know exactly why it is that a filmmaker like Norman is as important as he is when we are talking not just about African American cinema, but also about silent cinema and also about American cinema during these times. And so I urge you once again to take a look at some of the scholarship and some of the resources that are available for us to be able to explore and to study and to enjoy the filmmaker that was Richard E. Norman. And so I encourage you to take a look at some of those resources which are listed in the description box, bibliography or suggested reading list. And again, this isn't exhaustive. There are many more places to go, but these are a few places that I think are well worth checking out if you want to get a better sense of the importance of the cinema of Richard E. Norman. Once again, I am not an expert, but I have read up a little bit on the cinema of Richard Norman, and these are some sources that I would strongly recommend to check out if you are interested. But in that context, let me return to the idea that on the one hand, unfortunately, many of his works as of now are not surviving. But on the other hand, what that means is that those fragments or those works that are surviving now for us to watch, I think hold a lot of value and stature because they represent something that is in many ways quite sacred in the context of silent cinema, because these are surviving works of a silent film artist that was very important, very innovative, and quite good at creating exciting spectacle and really moving human drama. And so what we have surviving, I think, should be held up and should be celebrated for, again, what it shows us, the audiences of today. And among those materials and works that are surviving is the film The Flying Ace from 1926. And so we are very fortunate to be able to have this particular print to be able to watch today. And I must say that it looks so great. The picture looks pristine, and it looks crisp, and it looks vivid and sharp. And it's great too because the film is amazing. It is such an exciting work. So I'm so happy that this film, The Flying Ace, is available for all of us to be able to watch now and enjoy as a kind of great example of the filmmaker, Richard E. Norman, and what it was that he really brought to the screen, to the silent screen cinema, and to the idea of his place in the conversation of race films and of African American cinema. And so it's really wonderful to have this film available to us. And so I would encourage you, my dear friends, if you have not seen this film, The Flying Ace, please take a look at it. It's so much fun. It is so exciting. The print, or the version that's available, for example, in this Kino Classics Blu-ray set, is described as being 65 minutes. And this is from 1926. It's a silent film. And it's so packed with a lot of great story, a lot of heart, and a lot of compelling characters. And it moves so quickly and at a wonderful pace. So it's a lot of fun, and it's an action film, it's a mystery film, it's a suspense film, it's a detective film. It's almost like it has elements of what one might call locked room mysteries. There is a sense of a missing person. There is an air of intrigue. There is an air of romance. There are chases. There are fights. There is airplane chases. There's a lot. There's explosions and fires, and there's intrigue and danger. There are thieves, and there's a detective with clues and a mystery that it just all operates on this incredible intensified level of cinematic entertainment and a real joy of the filmmaking marvel and the filmmaking craft. And it goes by so quickly because it's so much fun. This is a great, entertaining, thrilling mystery, romance, drama, and it's so much more. So The Flying Ace, my friends, if you have not seen this film yet, please, I urge you, I strongly recommend that you check it out. It is wonderful. It is such a wonderful time. And I should point out also that it is found, as I say, in this curated series, Pioneers of African American Cinema, which is very, very interesting, incredibly interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, as I mentioned before in a previous video, we have to remember that Richard E. Norman is a white filmmaker who is making films that have African American actors in their casts playing African American characters that are involved in these stories. And in particular with The Flying Ace, what's really interesting is that on the one hand, in terms of its production history, it does have a great significance because of the circumstances by which it was made. And on the other hand, the story itself, I think, could be said, and it's been described, for instance, in the booklet essay that's included with this Blu-ray set, for example, it could be said also to be a film that, unlike, say, the films of, say, Oscar Micheaux or other prominent filmmakers of the time, contemporary filmmakers of the time, it could be said that Richard Norman and a film like The Flying Ace, Richard Norman isn't necessarily making a film that is having subject matter directly dealing with, say, social issues of the time, dealing with, for example, some of those socially relevant themes that we saw in, say, an Oscar Micheaux silent film. So, for instance, we don't get in The Flying Ace, directly anyway, any themes involving miscegenation, any themes involving overt racial discrimination. We don't get any themes involving attempts at proposing solutions to these social issues via education, via suffrage, and via the independent spirit, the cultivation of the independent spirit via the homestead, as we saw, say, in Oscar Michaud's works, as these were being proposed, as I was trying to suggest, as kinds of solutions via the cinematic medium of the problems of contemporary society that were being identified by Oscar Michaud through his works. On the other hand, however, we have to remember that this film was very popular in its time, and we know this from the historical record. And we also know, according to the scholarship of people like Barbara Tepa Lupack in her work, which is called Richard E. Norman and Race Filmmaking, we know that this film was very popular among African American audiences. And we know this because, or we can identify certain traits within the film that are very positive depictions of African American characters. The term that Lupack uses in her work is the idea of uplift, racial uplift. And I think what this refers to is the idea of depiction of African American characters that is not a reinforcement of racial stereotypes, of negative racial stereotypes, but rather depictions of characters who are African American and who are being shown in positive ways, either through their heroism or through their work ethic or things of that nature. And so I think that this film, although it doesn't directly deal with these themes of, let's say, addressing the social ills of the time, still is very consistently relevant when we are talking about African American cinema, by virtue of the fact of its depictions of its characters and the production history and the way in which we have stories that have the African American characters portrayed by African American casts in films that are fun, that are entertaining, that are enlightening, that are thrilling, enthralling, and always depicting in some form or another positive depictions, if you will, of characters that are in these films, such as The Flying Ace. And so we as audience members are allowed to go along with these characters, to sympathize with the characters, to be on the edge of our seats when we see them in moments of peril and moments of doubt and suspense and action. And I think that is the point of a film like The Flying Ace. It is, on the one hand, a film that is a wonderful, thrilling entertainment, but also, on the other hand, by virtue of many factors, among which being the very fact of its existence. By virtue of these factors, I think we can understand its importance in the place, its importance and place in the conversation of race cinema and African American cinema. And so ultimately, in the end, we have what amounts to a splendid work of art, a wonderful example of a cinematic artist in Richard E. Norman, and a thrilling entertainment, just a wonderful, splendid, amazing ride that has action, romance, suspense, drama, mystery, and so much more. This is a real marvel. This is a real sight to behold, and it has so many treats and wonders for those, even today, who are going to approach this film for the first time. Believe me, my friends, believe me, this is a great one. And I know that you will enjoy this film if you haven't seen it yet. Once again, the film is The Flying Ace from 1926. The filmmaker is Richard E. Norman. And I know that you will enjoy this one, my friends. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out because it is a wonderful time. Once again, The Flying Ace. Okay, my friends, that's it for now. And so thank you so much for your time, as always, my friends, as always. And until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Take very good care of yourselves. My warmest regards to you, as always. And cheers.